Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Crafting a Business podcast. Today, I sit down with Nat from Nat's Crafty Life. Nat is one of the admins of the Cricut for Australians Facebook group. So this Facebook group has saved me so many times, and it's such a hive of knowledge in there. There's a whole lot of crafters in there, and there's all different variations of level. So what I'm talking about is there's people that have literally just got their Cricut and people who are experts and, Cricut for their businesses and for hobby and all of that, right? But it's really, really helped me because every time I've ended up in a place where, oh my God, I don't know what's wrong with this. I don't know what happened. I don't know how to fix this when I made a mistake. And a whole lot of hacks and stuff in there. I've just learnt from this group. So I really enjoyed this conversation with Nat, and she's like an OG crafter for me, because when I first started crafting, she was one of the first pages that I followed. So it was a real honor to speak to her, and it's really interesting to hear her story, because a lot of people don't know, but before she became this influencer for Cricut and all of this, she had her own business too. So and she talked me through that process of building that business enough to be pretty big, but then deciding to close it down. And she talks me through why and what she learnt, and also about her journey with Cricut. She even went to the US to one of the crafting events there just to learn about Cricut. So I hope you love this conversation with Nat. If you like this type of content, please subscribe. There's lots more coming. Enjoy.
Hey, Nat.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. I have been looking forward to this chat for a very long time. And it feels a bit weird because, we've been talking for ages, hey?
Yeah.
I think I was like this even before I started the business, I was kind of like, oh, I'm into this crafting thing. And I literally, I think I just searched something on Instagram or Facebook. And as you do, you find the who's who, and here we are. This is a bit of a moment for me. I should just take it in, hey?
Bask in the ambience.
Yes, totally take it in. No, totally take it in. I would love for you to kind of tell us how you got to this place. Like, where do I even start? Like, how did Nat become Nat? And how did Nat start Nat's Crafty Life? And well, okay, let me start again. So for everyone that doesn't know, Nat is a Cricut Community Leader, and she's like one of the celebrities, I'm going to say. I'm talking about you like third person. But anyway, she's one of the who's who of Cricut in Australia. And you look after the Cricut for Australians Facebook group, which has however many thousands of people in the group.
Over 100,000
oh my
at the
God,
moment. It's probably like close to 110,000 now.
Yeah, wow. And this group has saved me so many times when I stuff something up, or I don't know what setting to cut it on, or I don't know what this material is, and I just search the group and I find an answer. So how did that group come to be? Let's start there.
Okay, so I didn't actually create the group. So it wasn't created by myself. I was actually brought on just after it was created. So originally, back in the day, obviously I'm an old school Cricut crafter, not as old school as some women out there, but I'm definitely an old school Cricut crafter. And I had one of the original Cricut Expression 2 machines. And I joined one of the US pages, probably, I don't know which page it was, but one of the US pages that, weirdly enough, I'm no longer a part of. I don't know if they're just not there anymore or I clicked them. I don't know. But this lady came on to the page saying, hey, is there anyone from Australia? Would anyone be interested in joining a page if I created one? And of course, a heap of us, or I say a heap, like 50 of us probably said yes. And she was like, that's enough for a group. And so she created the group. And obviously just called it Cricut for Australians, and we've kept the name the whole way through. Her name was Jules Williams, and so she's the one who actually created the group. That was probably back in 2016, I would dare say, maybe 2015. I'm not quite 100% sure exactly when the group started. And from there we kind of just sort of did our thing. And I was not super active in the group, but I was always there to answer people's questions. I was really good at iron-on stuff, and it's quite funny because when I was in the group and Paul was in the group, I used to get really jealous of his card projects. I was like, how dare you be better at card projects? Because I used to make cards when I was before I had a Cricut, and so I was really jealous, and I was like, oh, I don't like him. And then and he knows this story, and then he actually said he used to be jealous of like my iron-on projects, and was in awe of it. But one day in October 2017, the admin Julie, she had gone into labor to have her second son, and she was struggling with a few issues that were coming onto the page. We probably only had like, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 members, if that, at the time, and there was people complaining about stealing people's ideas and things like that, which if you're going to share it in the group, you're sharing it in the group because you know, it's an idea. You don't, if it's a authentic thing, you're not going to share it out in public if you don't want other people to use it as inspiration. And so she was literally giving birth and had asked me to jump in and assist whilst she was busy, and so she just made me as an admin, and it just kind of happened so organically because I was able to jump in and just resolve a problem that someone was having, and sort of from there it just became like a friendship that Jules and I had, and you know, back and forth we decided to eventually catch up and meet up with each other, and the group sort of started from there. We didn't really have any strict rules or anything prior to that other than the usual be kind to each other kind of rules, but it was funny. I was out drinking one night with my sister, and
as you do,
we got a request to join the group from Ashish Arora. So that's the CEO of Cricut. So
I know.
I drunkenly added him to the group and did like a little post. It would have been at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, welcome to the group, and tagged him in it. It was the most insane 3 o'clock in the morning post of anybody. I was so drunk, and I woke up the next morning super hungover, and there was this big group chat between Ashish, Jules, and myself that I clearly was added to the chat but not taking part of it. And they were arranging a meeting for us all to essentially just catch up and talk about the group and how they can help the members of Australia. So that's pretty much how we came to be. That was the start of the journey, essentially.
And how many followers were you at? Not followers, group members were you at this stage when the CEO decided to join?
Maybe 1,000.
Wow. So they from a marketing point of view, because my mind always goes to that, right? They obviously saw their potential, and they obviously had pinpointed Australia as an untapped market, I guess, you know, and to have someone that high level, like, I know how it works in the corporate game, and like that high level, if that person's on the tools as much as Ashish Arora is, it looked like it just, often I find that Aussies are like forgotten a little bit. Like there's all these US pages, there's all these like US, all the new fandangled like crafting stuff, and then we just can't get it. Like, you know? So that tells me that Cricut really makes takes us as really, really important. And where from there, like since that drunken kind of chat and you know, to 100,000 followers, like tell me about that journey.
So he later, like, we arranged some Zoom meetings with who was it? A whole bunch of people in the US. Like I could probably name drop, but you guys wouldn't even know who they were. A lot of sales and marketing managers, because at the time they didn't actually have a team on the ground here in Australia. So everything was happening overseas. And this was just before the Easy Press was released.
I see.
The original blue one.
Okay.
Yeah, so at this time we'd had some stock come to the country and was only stocked at Spotlight. So I think we only had at the time the Explore Air 2 was in stock in stores. The Maker hadn't come out yet, and the Easy Press hadn't even come out yet. But I think it had just been released in the US, but it hadn't come out to us. So they wanted some assistance with content, what's great for Aussies. I know there's still a way to go to try and get the right content for Aussies, because it's really hard, but they're doing with the Cricut, what is that, contributing artists. That really goes a long way.
Yes.
Because then you've got a lot of Aussie artists in there now putting their bits in. But we were helping back in the days with, you know, content. So we were trying to tell them things for Australia Day, things for Anzac Day, things for the right spelling. Can we get the right spellings on all our stuff?
Like
so we were involved in a lot of, a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
Even some of the products that were being released to Australia, we were giving them ideas as to what would work for Australia and what wouldn't work for Australia. So they had their eye on the already pre-printed ones, kind of like your DTF ones. They had them, and they were asking our ideas on what would work in Australia, and, you know, so they knew what to pitch to their to the, who is it, the person in charge of sales at Spotlight at the time. So a lot of that was sort of based on what we were saying we wanted to see, and in terms of products. And then they did appoint a new, like a marketing manager in Australia here at the time. She no longer works for Cricut, but she was really, really passionate, like about the product, but also about us as a group. And in 2018, she got approval from Cricut for us to go over to the Mountain Makeathon in Utah, which was held at the end of July, beginning of August in 2018. So we got to go over to the whole event. So it's a 3-day crafting event. And then we also then on the 4th day got to go to Cricut's head office. So Jules and I, that was my first trip outside of the country.
Wow, first trip outside the country, and you get to go to Cricut head office. Oh my
yeah,
God.
I never left Australia
That's
before
like
that.
crafting like heaven.
Exactly. And so we went, and, you know, we got to meet Melody Lane and Ken from Ken's Creations, and Carly Hall, who at the time worked for Cricut. She wasn't an influencer at the time. We got to meet Lia Griffith and do like a crepe paper flower class with her. So and the whole reason is because our future at Cricut for Australians really stemmed from this Mountain Makeathon. How we directed what we wanted to do with the country was really as a result of the classes that were taught at the Mountain Makeathon. So we really wanted to give Australia something similar to that. Like, we obviously can't do it at the scale that they had it at, because they had like people coming over had the Crafty gentleman come over from the UK, and they had a Bespoke Bride come over from the UK as well, and they just had people coming from every country you can imagine, and some of these people were there to teach classes, and other people were there just to experience the day like we were. But yeah, so when we came back from Utah, we really wanted to do something. And whilst we were away, Paul joined the group whilst we were away, and because we needed someone to look after the page while we were gone.
Of course, someone's got to. Yep, I totally get that. Yeah.
So he got stuck behind dealing with everything while we
Sorry,
were like having this high life.
I'm gonna raise that when I have Paul on this podcast, which is planned. I'm gonna raise that and see how he felt about that. Oh.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much where we kicked off. We had some meetings with Ashish Arora back then as well, and I think at the time of being over there, we were probably maybe at 3,500 members. And he kept telling us, you're going to be 20,000, you're going to be 50,000 in no time. And we were like, you're dreaming, like, we're never going to get there.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, we honestly never thought it would grow as big as it did. Like, it was insane. And when it did grow, it grew really quickly. But the three of us sat down later on in the year, and we decided we liked the idea of potentially having we were going to do a Christmas party. It was literally just going to be, we were just going to have all catch up in Queensland, in Brisbane, because Jules was from Brisbane. I was from just south of Brisbane, in northern New South Wales, and Paul's family was in Brisbane. So he was like, I can go visit mum, it's fine. And then it turned into like, because we were just going to invite people to just come in as like a meet and greet, kind of like, let's catch up. Anyone in Brisbane who wants to come, just catch up sort of thing. You buy your own food kind of thing. And that turned into us teaching a class each and formalizing it to what became the first original CFA Craftathon, which was a Christmas theme. And we held it in person at the Indooroopilly Golf Club, I think. And it was just an all-round amazing event. We had Spotlight there with our pop-up shop. I don't even know how we made it work, but we made it work.
I love how organic all of this is. Like, I really resonate with this. Like, half the time I'm sitting here and I'm like, how the hell did that just happen? Like, you know, when Nat, you post about my product, and I'm like, what? How did that happen? Like, and I really resonate with that, because the organicness of it just goes to show how authentic, I guess, it is, and everybody just loves to craft, right?
Yeah,
like it
was never like it wasn't a business goal or anything like that. I mean, it definitely wasn't for me. I don't have that mind in terms of being able to make a business plan, and that doesn't work for me. Everything just sort of has to feel natural, and
I'm totally
I definitely like, if it happens, it happens, but you know you make decisions based on where you go, and it just all felt natural, and then people really wanted it. And I'm talking like on the day, it felt surreal. Like, I know you said, oh, I'm speaking with a celebrity. I'm not a celebrity, but it felt so surreal because people would come up and take your photo and things like that. And you'd be like, and it's funny because when we were in the US, I was like standing in line to check in at the hotel, and I have this photo that I'm taking, a sneaky photo, because Melody Lane's behind me, and I'm like, and we shared that in the Cricut for Australians group at the time. And I'm talking, this is back in 2018, and everyone's like, that's funny because that's how we feel about you. And we were like, no. But it was just such a natural, and like, I'm not saying that's how everybody feels, that's just how some select people felt about us. But like, we always wanted to keep it sort of natural and organic in terms of what we did. So we saw that there was a need for people to learn a little bit more, and a lot of people were going to YouTube to get a lot of their answers. But the problem is that when you go to YouTube, they tell you a lot of American supplies that you can't get in Australia. So we started doing a Thursday night live, which for the last 2 years probably hasn't been there. But we did do Thursday night lives where we go live on a different subject each Thursday night. And I mean, I still can't catch up with Paul and his technology. But, we started off, I'm talking, if you look at any of our old videos, and they're all still in the group, we had iPhones and everything was like reverse mirrored, because, as soon as you spun the camera, it would reverse all the wording. So you'd be like, here's my onesie, trust me, it's not backwards, So we did a lot of these.
I think that's great though, to show your growth. Like, we didn't have, I mean, right now I'm sitting in my warehouse with a pair of AirPods and my husband's computer because like, we just make do, right? And I remember those early videos because that's how I found you. I was figuring out how to make baubles one time, and I think I searched that video.
So many videos of that. I think I've done like 5 tutorials.
Oh, and I can't even remember which one it was, but I remember blew my mind when you put the bauble on the transfer tape. I think it was just to hold it, right? And to this day, people message me, because I do that in my videos and I don't even think about it. And they're like, oh my God, you blew my mind with that. I'm like, that's not me. That's Nat. You should go follow her. But it just goes to show, right? Like, what is news to you is it's news to other people too. So what you find as normal, and what you say is, lo-fi, I mean, like words backwards, low camera, all that, like, is gold to some people, right? Like, it all kind of depends on where you are in that journey. like,
Yeah.
and where you want to where you are to be able to take that in. But I love that the whole group and the whole premise of it is learning and sharing something new and sharing something, you know, that that you know, every week in your Thursday Night Live, I know it hasn't happened with COVID and stuff like that, but like every week is something new subject, new, you know, and I feel like that's the best thing about crafting. Anyway, that's kind of my opinion. There's no question in there. That's just a comment.
No.
Like, you know,
I totally agree. I think, and the only reason why really those lives kind of stopped was because you get to a point where, hang on, my food's coming. You get to a point where he's like, I didn't know you were on the thing.
Hi, husband. I should have said hi.
You get to a point where there's only so much you can repeat the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I get that.
They have had a lot of new products come out recently, but a lot of them are similar products to what is out on the market that we've already done demonstrations for in the past and things like that. So I guess, you know, because there's not as much fresh stuff to do, and I know that YouTubers out there, they do have a lot of fresh information and stuff that they can provide, but a lot of them you'll find go over the same thing, just on a different medium or whatnot. So we wanted to try and avoid mixed information in terms of doubling up too much. So if I'm going to do a new tutorial on something, so like I said, I've done 5 on the baubles, but I actually do them with a different supply each time so that people can see, like, so I've done one which had 4 different glues to use, and then I did another one
that was the one I saw.
Yeah, that's the one that had the little cheek, or Paul was up in the corner and there was like a little cheeky comment on my applying of the vinyl on it. So if you go back, you'll see a little cheeky comment in there about the letter D.
Okay. Oh, I remember that. That was so funny because it was at the time I think I was pregnant and I was figuring out this Cricut machine, and my husband had, like, because I was, you know, spewing all the time, my husband put it up on the big TV and then the comment about the D came in. Anyway, that was hilarious.
And that's the thing, the lives are so great because they're natural. That's how we speak. We're not gonna be like swearing at them, but if there's something cheeky that comes on, like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We even had that in the Crafty boot camp that just happened on Saturday just gone. We even had a little mishap that happened in that one of the lives on that day, where I said something to Scott, who was moderating, and he came back at me with a not appropriate comment in the comments, and I was like, no comment, not saying anything. But it just happens because interpretation is such a huge thing when it comes to social media.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that because you kind of mentioned before in the early stages of the group how there was an issue when, you know, and that's how you came on board. And the issue was around someone copying someone else. And, you know, and as you say, on social media, everything can be misinterpreted, misconstrued. Like, you can mean one thing, but it's said another way. Like, you know, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's still an issue because I mean, let's be real. If I make a bottle and I use this font that I found on DaFont and I use this kind of vinyl, anyone can emulate that. Anyone can do the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
So how do you kind of, I mean, how, like, oh, I don't know what I'm trying to ask, but like, the way I see it is that everyone wants to be creative, right? Everyone wants to add their own spin. And also everyone kind of knows that there's another cricketer down the road that can do the exact same thing, right? So, and I see this comment all the time in the group, like, every man and their dog has their cricket, so it's really competitive, so therefore you can't get it, like, it's oversaturated, all of that. I guess that's my kind of way of asking, like, how do you differentiate yourself? Like, you've obviously made a completely different pathway with the group and with your work with Cricut, still using the same kind of machine. See what I'm saying? So it's not the normal path of, I'm going to make a personalized gift and I'm going to sell that. How did you kind of realize that this was an opportunity? Or are you just kind of just organically kind of going with the flow, you know?
I'm going with the flow organically, but something not a lot of people realize is if they haven't been around for as long, but I did have a business. I did do the Cricut business, selling personalized items and things like that. So I was known as NJB Creative Design back in the day. That was my page. And, you know, I was quite successful to the point that I could have given up my job. So it was very successful. You know, I was pretty much the go-to in my area. A lot of, in my town where I lived, a lot of people, if they were asking on Facebook pages who makes personalized t-shirts, instead of going to your local embroidery shop, everyone would tag me. And obviously I felt like the key to making things different is don't rely on DeFont and places like that offer free, don't rely on anything that's a free image or a free font, because realistically it's going to be used by somebody else. You should always be getting you know, if you're going to sell, you should always be getting a commercial license for your fonts that you use anyway. So I think that it's really important that you utilize those paid fonts. Find your ones that go nicely together, and because 9 times out of 10, the everyday crafter down the road who's just trying to make a quick buck is probably not going to pay for a paid font. They'll get a free version, which is what you tend to see in the groups. So that's something that always sort of set my stuff aside. I wasn't just using free fonts. I do have a wealth of knowledge of what those free fonts are out there, which is always handy. But I think that making sure that you use something unique in terms of your fonts, because like I said, someone who's just not in it to make a full business plan out of it is not going to put the effort in to buy the licenses. Pardon me. And I think that's something that people need to realize. Those free fonts on DeFont aren't any licenses for you to sell. And that's the biggest misconception.
Totally. And I think that a lot of people, they do rely on that. Like, you know, they put all their effort into making this amazing, you know, product. They put a lot of time, a lot of effort into thinking, into making that product. And then they're like, oh, but someone's copied me. Well, no, unfortunately, they haven't copied you. They've come to the same process as you, as in they've gone to DeFont, they've gone to find the vinyl, they've gone to, you know, but unfortunately, as of course, being in Australia as well, our supply is limited, right? So there are, you know, there are certain types of vinyl that work. There are certain types of font that work. You know, this looks nice with this, etc. So how did you, like, to be able to be at that point with your business where you could have left your job, besides using things that are not readily available, do you have any other tips for crafters that can set themselves apart?
Persistence. So be okay with feedback that comes back to you. So if someone says that the vinyl is lifting, offer to repair it or replace it. Don't assume that the customer has done something to it. I mean, to be honest, I was working full time at the same time as running this business at the start. So long hours. Packaging goes a long way, and you would know that from your business. Like, you know, you stand out from your packaging. And I guess don't sell yourself short. Like, you don't have to undercut other people around you. You set your price because that's your worth. You will not succeed if you're running at a loss. That's the biggest thing is if you are running at a loss, don't sell yourself short. But don't be scared of taking on those big projects. I remember early on in my my business, I took on an order of 500 shirts for a preschool. And the file was not given to me. I had to convert the file myself. And it was half in glitter and half, and like the picture, the image was like literally like a stick figure drawing that some kid has done back 20 years ago, and that stayed as their logo. And so it was like fine, jagged edges,
not clean cut vinyl.
Yeah, it was not easy. It had like, I don't know, 10 different colors in it as well. But you know what? I stuck at it and kind of got a name for it because everyone was like, where did you get your shirts done? And then that process happened. So if you're not scared of taking those risks and committing to big jobs, then your name's going to get put out there in town as someone to go to.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really interesting because a lot of and this is part of the course, right? When I sat down to plan this course, I had a lot of feedback from my own group, my blanks group, and people were like, Debbie, how did you start? How did you start this business? And, you know, how did you get bigger orders? And, you know, all of that, right? And I was like, okay, hold on. Let's go back to simple first, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to know your worth, first of all, and you have to make a margin, right? So if it means that you sit there, and I have a whole like costing sheet, and I spent like a good half an hour explaining this, because it's like, say you buy a bottle from Kmart for $6 and then you get another vinyl. I'm not saying use Kmart, but say you are, right, starting out, and your vinyl costs another $1. And then, like, you know, it takes you half an hour to cut, like design, cut, weed, and then adhere it. So that's what, like 40 minutes per bottle, right? And then someone decides, yeah, okay, I wanna get 10 bottles. 40 minutes times however many 20 bottles is what? I don't even know that math, but you have to look at that time. I don't know that math, but you know, you have to look at the time, right? So if you're only charging $5, $6, $7 for the bottle, right, and it costs you $6 plus one, like, you're not making anything, and then you're working for free. So I always tell my my community to make sure that you're looking at it like an hourly rate, right? If you know it takes you an hour, what can you do to bring that time down? Or what can you do to, you know, tell your customer, okay, if you order 20, it's going to take me this, like, explain it. I guess that's part of why my entire social media strategy, and I don't even know if you're going to call it a strategy, my entire social media is about showing my journey, right? If it means that I just put a camera up and I show people packing, and, you know, and I show that I'm running around, and, you know, I'm not doing that just to do that. Like, I'm showing people my journey, because then they're okay with my prices being my prices. I'm not the cheapest out there. I'm not the most expensive. I'm kind of in the middle, right? But you know how much effort I'm going through to get that product to your door, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's really interesting, because from your standpoint, who has done the business thing, has got it to the point of, you know, of being really, really successful, your tip to other crafters is around knowing your worth, and knowing and being and sticking to that, right?
Yeah.
But how do you
100%.
compete against that? How do you compete against the, you know, the Joe down the road who just got their Cricut? And
but you don't. That's the thing. You don't compete against the others. That's where people too often get stuck into. And I did do this for this little portion of time in my business, though. There was this time where I just got an Afterpay added to my website, and I went on to the Afterpay Australia pages and things like that. And every time someone said, looking for someone who can do a shirt, I was the one in there going, I can do it for this price, and trying to beat somebody else's price, because, you know, I was trying to build it. But in the end, I realized that was just putting extra added stress onto the process, and I didn't need to do that. Realistically, you start with your family and friends. That's where you should always start.
Totally.
Don't start by having a business. You start with your family and friends. Your family and friends, I mean, it might be different. I never lived in Brisbane at the time that I did this, but I had all my family and friends back home in Lismore. They all spoke. They all talked to each other. So anytime anybody wanted anything, my sister was the first one there. My sister can do it. And she was my guinea pig anyway. So she was getting all the baby onesies for my niece at the time, and all of the t-shirts and matching outfits and things like that I was doing. So, you know, at the end of the day, like, you're practicing with your product first and foremost on somebody who is using it. That person didn't pay for it. Like, my sister definitely didn't pay for anything. But she's washed it, she's worn it to death. She's let you know when something's, you know, she's tried and tested it, and she's vouching for you to everybody else in her community. So it's not just you and who you're friends with. Like, you know, I don't have a huge friend group base on, you know, especially back then. I didn't have a lot of people around me. I had my family, but it grew because of your family knows someone. You know, I put my brother's stepson's name on the back of a jersey one day. And then his mates were like, where can I get a t-shirt done? Like, he's like, my sister can do it. You know, like my brother would be the last person to like be out there like advertising for me, because he's just not that kind of guy. But he was like, yeah, get my sister to do it. Like, you know, it's the word of mouth thing that really does get it. And stop comparing yourself to the other people down the road, because their goals and they're not the same as yours. You have a different goal, you've got a different family, you've got a different household, you've got different bills. You probably buy different supplies, you know, depending on where you live, and you know, you want something different out of it. No one goes into it wanting to just make $1 million, because you're not going to if that's the case. I did it because I wanted to sell so I could keep crafting. I didn't want to sell so I could make money. I wanted to sell so I could keep crafting. And I think that's probably a huge difference. If you're going into it to sell because you need to, you know, supplement an income because of rising interest rates and things like that, you may have to take a reality check to think, well, hang on a minute, it's going to take time.
Totally. And I think I started that way too. Like, you know, first goal was, okay, let's just pay off the machine. The machine cost me $600, $700 plus all the parts and all that stuff. And then it, you know, the first Christmas where it's the same, family, friends, you know, I started sharing what I was making, and all of a sudden they were like, hey, Debbie, I like that. Can you make me one? Right. So, and at the time I didn't know it was marketing, but it is. The word of mouth and the community building, if you can build people around you, like your brother, that isn't your, like, they're not salespeople, they're just answering a question. They're just answering a question when they see whatever product it is, and if they like it, if somebody likes it, they will ask where it's from. And it's just, and that's how communities are grown, and that's how businesses are grown from that. So it's really interesting, because it's so, I mean, it seems so simple, right? Like everybody, if again, as you say, when you come into it and you like whatever added pressures, you want to grow a business, whatever it is that really the right frame of mind? You know, if we go back to the making and the creating, then maybe the sales will come, right? Yeah.
I truly believe it. Like, I mean, I used to do market stalls, and I'd have some market stalls where I'd sell nothing, right? I'd be standing there all day. People would be interested, but they just wouldn't buy. But then, you know, I would have other market stalls where I would just sell out of everything because it was the right time. But the thing is I only held those market stalls so I could keep putting more stuff out. There was only so much I could hold in my house myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I guess that comes to the journey where I am now, where I don't have the business. I create for content. So I create for fun. So I either am making something because I want to make something for content, or I'm making something because I want to make something for my family. That's what it really comes down to now. I do the occasional sale. Like, I'm not going to lie. People do contact me. I do have a lady that comes to me to get her cake toppers done, because even though she's got a Cricut, she just doesn't have the time. And it's always,
and she trusts you,
know, last minute. So she does trust me. And I do have some of my old customers from back home that, you know, do still come to me. My mum still, my first big seller actually was birth cushions, like those cushions with the birth details on them. That was my huge, my biggest seller back in the day. Like, I made one for my niece, and then everybody wanted one for their child. And I still have women who are now having like their third and fourth and fifth babies that are like, can you make me one still? And my mum still, like, that's, I heard my mum messaged me the other day. I didn't even know what she wanted. She said, cream cushion, mint colored vinyl, and this is all the details. And I was like, I'm guessing you want a birth detail cushion? So, you know, like, even still, like, that's my mom's go-to, and she's somehow randomly selling them to people that she knows because they have done them for their grandchildren for years, or, you know, now. So
that goes to time, right? Like, how long you're however many years in this journey, and now you started to get the recurring sales from people that have trusted you, right? So that goes to time. Like, so when people like come into this and they buy their Cricut machine and they're like, I'm going to build a business, can't expect it in a day. Rome wasn't built 100%. In a day, whatever that saying is, right? So, you know, and if it's just really interesting to reflect back on your journey and to see how you started. But I want to know, like, what made you decide to stop, and why isn't the business here anymore?
There's a few things. the first one was that I was exhausted, like 100%. I was exhausted. I didn't really, personal reasons came into play financially where I didn't feel comfortable just leaving my job. I had to make a decision. But I pretty much stopped the business when I became what was the Product Expert program with Cricut. So they never asked me to stop it. I was definitely still allowed to continue a business and everything, but it was just too much. I was running the page, I was running a business, I was working full time, I was doing lives, you know, we had the craftathon, that was a yearly occurrence in play. I just did not have time. And, you know, my niece was, I think at the time, maybe my sister was living with me at the time. So I had my niece always around. I couldn't keep doing it. I had to burn out at some point. And I had to make a decision on what was the most economical for my future. And keeping a 9-to-5 job was probably the best choice at the time. But it gave me creative freedom back again. So when you're crafting for orders, you don't always get to play. You just make what they want.
Yeah, and that's part of why I moved, because I like you started as a personalized gift, you know, maker, and and it got to the point where I was, you know what, I think one Christmas I got like 3 or 4 sports teams orders, and they all wanted coffee cups with their names on them, and you know, and it was great because you know, I realized, okay, maybe there's potential here, I have a business or something, you know, but burnout is real, pregnant at the time, it's, you know, and I lost the joy, and that's why I moved into blanks, because I'm like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's trending? What you know, and it's really important for me to still be a crafter first, you know. I'm a crafter first because I want to know if I like it and I have fun making it and making it my own and all that, then I know others will. But if I'm getting stuff to come in and you know, and it's nothing different, and you know, then I've lost my kind of bearing, right? So again, it goes back to making, creating, and seeing where that goes, and going back to that rawness of you know, let's just put aside all the drama and the politics and all of that, and let's just make.
And that's really what it was. And you know what, it's funny because I had such a passion for paper crafting. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, when I started selling, I was doing a lot more iron-on and vinyl. But when I stopped selling, like stopped the business, and I sold off a lot of my blanks, I destashed so much. I got to be able to go back to create those paper projects from time to time that you wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't not naturally get an order for a foiled card. You know, like they're things that, you know, you just want to enjoy doing here and there and trying something different. But I think, and you also, I hate trends. I know it's going to sound really, it's so not the way of crafting because everyone jumps onto a trend, but I hate it. My pet peeve is I don't want to make what everybody else is making because they're making it. So, and I'm definitely not really a trend starter. I don't think that I'm a trend starter. I definitely
No, I think you are. I mean, you got me on baubles, so.
But I think baubles have been around for so well. Like, I'm definitely not the person who's coming out there and showing them, like showing what can be done as a new technique. I'm definitely not creating those new techniques and trends. But I will come back a year after something's been done and make it, and I'll like make it again and make it my own, and that will start it and influence it again. But I'm not going to say I'm a trendsetter. I like spiral betties came out. I refused to do them when everybody else doing them. I love the look of them. I love the look of them, and they would be great on certain projects, but there was no way I was making a spiral betty because everybody else was. And so, you know, I have projects in mind in the future where I will use a spiral betty, but it's not happening whilst it's still very prevalent in the page. Like I thought it had died down, and then I saw a few more and I was like, nope, biding my time. Yeah, but the same thing was reverse canvases. So reverse canvases were huge, and then they died down, and then I did one in a tutorial, and then a few people did them, and then it died down a bit, and then I just did one recently in our Crafty boot camp. So, you know, I definitely don't like to go with the grain.
And I think that's testament to how you were able to grow your business and have something that is, like, a lot of people called you they go to, right? Because you obviously had a point of difference. And it goes back to my question around competing against everybody. Like, yes, everybody's getting a Cricut, and yes, more people the better. You know, we want to have more crafters and more people making stuff, because it helps us all in the long run. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what everybody else is making so that I can add my spin on it, you know, like,
yeah.
And it's going back to that, I think. So it's really, I've loved hearing your story, and I feel like we could learn a lot from you, because you've done the business thing, and you're kind of on the other side of it now, and you're still crafting, and you're just going back to making stuff. I love that.
Just having fun.
Yeah. And one last question, like, where do you see this going? Where do you see cricketing going? Where do you see cricketing in Australia going? Where does the group go? Like, yeah, where do you see it going?
Well, I think Paul and I are probably both on the same plan. I definitely want to keep doing what I'm doing now. Like, I don't have a lot of commitments, but I've just moved to back to Brisbane. I get to see my friend, my best friend more. I get to see my sisters here, and she's about to have a baby. So I definitely want to keep my personal life very prevalent, which is what I've done in the last few months since I've been up here. But cricketing is not going anywhere for me. I'm still going to be content creating. We're not changing anything the way we're doing with the group. We do have plans to boot camp more often. So I feel like that is a really great way, especially for the new people in the groups, that they can join to get sort of like an intensive class on different projects. So, and like I said, everyone knows how to apply vinyl to a glass, but it's about putting your spin on each project that we do. So over the years, we've definitely done vinyl projects till they're coming out your ears, but there's always going to be someone new to the group, someone that needs to learn. And so the boot camps are really good because there's a lot of prep work behind it, and Paul and I have a lot of fun creating projects and getting designs in place. And I get a little bit more of that business mind, which I said I'm not quite into, and I do rely on Paul a lot for the business side of things. But it also means that I get to have a play, and sometimes we just pick random supplies and then say, what can we make with this? And that's sometimes how we get our ideas for the boot camps or the craftathon. So we're currently in talks. We do have some future boot camp ideas for this year still. So we've just had one, and we do plan to have another boot camp. And we are in talks with Cricut at the moment with our craftathon as well. We'd love to see it go back to a point where we can be in person. But I've seen how successful online has been, that I can't see in person being as successful. In person is a lot of work, a lot more work. We do all the cutting ourselves. So it doesn't, when you do an in-person craftathon, the person attending doesn't get to troubleshoot if their machine isn't working. They might make something at the event and then go home to try to make it, and then it might not work for them because their cut settings are wrong or something. So I definitely think that the online is going to ramp up for us. But the page, it's only going to get bigger. We're just going to have to start. We just added a new mod, and mods come and go, and we're probably going to need more help in the future, because it is a big job managing it. And we use what we can with Facebook's assist, admin assist, and Scott is incredible and catches things that even I miss. So we definitely can only see it growing, but we just want to be able to provide more education, I guess, to the members, more prizes, more freebies, more everything. That's essentially where we want it to go, is we wanted to, there's been, Paul and I have been absent for a little bit with personal things like our move and, you know, different things. But we wanted to get it back to being that real community feel. Like, I know that community feels just there, but it's hard when there's like a mix between the old and the new. So there's a lot of new members that have come in that probably don't know what it was like way back when. And I think we want to get it to start feeling like that community feel. And, you know, I've got plans with sharing, project sharing within the group. So that's project sharing within Design Space. I'd really love to see the group share more, like people when they share their project, like share the design as well. So instead of just sending a photo and saying this is what I made, maybe share the file so somebody else can, you know, create it. Because, you know, that's what I, every project that I share in any of my pages, the file is readily available if anybody wants it. And I really would like to have that community feel where it's people helping one another. I understand businesses, people aren't going to want to share their ideas, but the people like the everyday crafter that just wants to have fun, I think that you can't go wrong with that.
And I love that. I'm all about the community and all about helping each other. And I would love to see more of that happening, you know, in a way that benefits everybody. If it means that, you know, somebody's learned about a new font or someone's learned about a new technique or how to share something, you know, the more crafters, the better. And I feel like there are other problems in the world and everything's going to shit, if I'm honest, you know?
Yeah.
Let's just get back to the making. Yeah.
And that's what we try to do in the group. It's really hard because, you know, in the world we live in this day and age, there are so many different people with so many different opinions and so many different beliefs. And what we try to do in the group is keep politics out of it, keep religion out of it, keep your personal beliefs out of it, and just get back to crafting. Like, that's what we're all there. That's one thing we all have in common is crafting, right? So, you know, we need to all start seeing that side of the community, and instead of everyone's opinions on whether someone welded their font or, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so much bigger problems in the world that, you know, if we can just be a happy crafting community sharing ideas, great. And if people don't want to share their ideas, then you don't have to either. You can still coexist in the group without sharing your content. We're not just there for the people who share, we're there for the people who want to be looky-loos. And I say that in the nicest way, but some people just want to be a looker and not a shower.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of people just want to absorb everything, which is completely fine. Take everything in and use what they want to, and that's completely fine too.
Take what they need, and that's fine. That's what the group's there for. Like, you don't have to be actively commenting in the group to be an active member. And we're never going to go through and go, we're going to get rid of anyone who hasn't commented in the last. We're not going to be one of those groups. Never will we be. I will fight Paul if he tries. He won't, but like we'll get some 50 cups up. If anybody wants to, like, you know, threaten that, that'll never happen in the group while I'm an admin.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of your knowledge. I think everybody will learn so much from you. And you know what? I think we're going to do a part 2 later because I have so many more questions to ask.
I'm an open book. I'm always happy.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Happy.